So when you celebrate someone's unfortunate death, what type of karma do you think is going to come back to you with that mentality? I mean, you're getting on social media, you're laughing while someone else's family is crying. Why? Because he didn't like black folks. When black folks don't like black folks. Well, I didn't like what he said. Well, sometimes people don't like what you say. Do you deserve a bullet in your throat because people disagree with what you say? You know, you sound like back in the 60s when the white community didn't like what Brother Medgar Evers was talking about. They mocked his death. They didn't like what Brother Malcolm was talking about, even after he left the army. They still didn't like it. They still didn't like what he talked about. And then you go to Dr. King. Dr. King spoke against the Vietnam War. And when he actually decided to speak against war, that is when he truly became a follower of the example of Yeshua. And where did they shoot Dr. King? They shot Dr. King in the throat. Who laughed back in the 60s when all of these brilliant black leaders were shot down? It was the white community. It was some blacks who celebrated, but the majority was the white community who laughed when all of these brothers were shot down. And you get angry at them. Well, what's the distinction between how you feel about what happened to Kurt and how the whites felt about Medgar Evers, Brother Malcolm, and Dr. King? What's the distinction? Morally, what is the distinction? It's not about race. It's not about political parties. It's not what it's about. It's about humanity. It's about morality. Where are you morally in terms of what's transpiring in this world that we all have to live in?
I'm concerned about all of these Negro preachers who've been, in fact, talking about that this man that was killed was the answer to Christ in the earth. Y'all ain't saying that. They having moments of silence in black churches all over the country over a man that was racist and a white supremacist. How dare you compare him to Martin Luther King? The only thing that Charlie Crist and Martin Luther King got in common is both of them was killed by a white man. After that, they got nothing else in common.
In my last video on the Charlie Kirk assassination, I told myself that I was going to be done with it and I was just going to. However, I had got some messages with some people calling themselves angry at me because they misunderstood the comparisons that I made with what happened to him and what happened to black leaders. I not too long made a video. It was about the Red Phoenix young lady, the one who was having discompatibilities with her manager at, I believe it was McDonald's. And so she returned to work and she took the life of her manager by stabbing her 15 times in her face until she was dead. So people misunderstood when I was trying to explain how all of that cultivated until that unfortunate act took place. I was explaining what led up to it. When I did that, people had said that I was justifying the murder. In that video, I had made a statement that said, comprehension has become a myth. And in this case, I would have to say the same thing, because it's plain in my previous video that I had explained what was done was not a race issue. It was a moral issue. And see, this is the danger of the effects, the education and the effects of racism and the historical accounts of racism, which builds up a whole lot of anger and animosity inside many people of this country. I mean, even I had to get past it. However, the comparisons that I was making was plain that I was talking about the comparisons of the moral acts of human beings against people who stood out as all of the people who I mentioned. It's simple. It's not a race issue. When it all boils down to it, when a person decides to do something on an immoral basis, their act itself is immoral in opposition to their moral standards or a universal type or common moral standard. It's simple. To say that I was comparing Charlie Kirk to Medgar Evers and Brother Malcolm and Dr. King, that's absurd. I was comparing what happened to all three of those brothers and what happened to Brother Charlie Kirk. I wasn't comparing them as human beings based upon their moral standards. I was comparing what happened to them in terms of the immoral act of public assassination. How simple can that be? But everyone is using this assassination as an opportunity to put themselves before the world, because everyone wants to be famous. And so what they do, they take a whole lot of people's dialogue and they twist it to fit their narrative. When I was talking about morality and immorality, because when it all comes to it, that's all that matters in this. It's not race. It's not political. It's not even religious. It's moral and immoral. That's what it's about. But what I've noticed, even after this assassination, now I'm hoping that this is not in effect of that. But what I noticed this morning is the news that Donald Trump has decided to send the National Guard in Chicago. And last night, I saw how disappointed and upset he was with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So I'm hoping that his sudden decision in sending the National Guard into Chicago is not because he's so hurt behind Charlie Kirk, because that wouldn't be a good reason to all of a sudden send National Guard in. That wouldn't look good. I'm hoping that his intention on sending the National Guard into Chicago, Illinois, is strictly based upon his original agenda, and not because he is angry and upset at a very close friend of his. Because if it is based upon the decision of how angry and hurt he is on Charlie Kirk's assassination, then I'm afraid that that's going to affect his decision making. And I'm hoping that his decision making doesn't fall mostly on the side of immorality, to where he creates decisions and policies during this time that they're sending the National Guard into Chicago based upon his hurt. Because we have to stay level-headed in everything that we do. I see pastors out here. I forget what his name is, but I think his first name is Jamal. Because I don't listen to any of the black preachers. I don't listen to any of them. But I came across a video today to where he's up there speaking in his church against the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And he was calling Charlie Kirk a racist. And what I noticed with the congregation, I saw a lot of black men out there just sitting there, but I saw nobody but black women cheering him on. And you know, this is one of the reasons why a whole lot of people are starting to leave the black church. Because the black church has become the most corrupted place in the world. And even this man has said, how dare you compare this man to Dr. Martin Luther King? Now, I don't know who he was listening to, but that's not what I was doing. I was using the comparison of what transpired immoral against all of these people who stood up. Even Attila Shabazz had said that when she was there during her father, Brother Malcolm X assassination, she said, I sat there and I saw these men take my father's life. And she said that's a vision that stayed with her for the rest of her life. And she always questioned herself to where, is it something that I could have done to avoid this? We're talking about the immoral act of public assassination of an individual. Let's remember when Charlie Kirk had got assassinated, his daughter was present. His whole family was present. The same way Brother Malcolm's family was present, and they saw him assassinated. So with me saying that, am I comparing Brother Malcolm's assassination to Charlie Kirk's assassination? Don't answer that too quick, because that's actually a trick question. Am I comparing their assassination? Yes, the assassination, the act of public assassination is the same. Doing this in front of their children, yes, it is the same. Is the act immoral towards both of these men? Yes, it is. Does this imply that there's a race issue? No, it is not a race issue. It is a moral issue. It's a moral issue. These two men were human beings. They were human beings, and they were shot down in front of their families. And that itself is immoral. What I don't understand, or I would Yeah, I would have to say. What I don't understand, if you say that you are a follower of the example of Christ, how could you stand before your congregation and mock a man's death simply because one of his own, so-called own, took his life? Now, what this preacher was talking about, I'm wondering, does he have any white members in his church? Because I would think that after he spoke this way, I would think that they would have the right or the audacity to just leave his church. Because obviously he's a racist pastor with this type of language. He's speaking racist language. And that goes against the word. And it goes against common decency. Mourn with those who mourn. But see, you have to have a heart of compassion and humility in order to mourn with those who are mourning, because what they experience, which is death itself, that's going to touch all of us. That doesn't imply that you're going to experience someone in your life that's going to be publicly assassinated. But we all are going to experience death of some of our loved ones. And that alone makes us one. We're all going to experience death of either our loved ones or ourselves. And that's just plain and simple. So there was no comparison of individuals. The comparisons were what happened to all of those men who stood up and spoke their truth. That's what it was. What happened to all of them, in spite of their race, was an immoral act. It was immoral. And this is the direction that the world is consistently going. The world is going into darkness. And when there are people like yourselves out there that take things out of context, you're assisting this world going into darkness. And with that being said, I'm just going to leave it at that.